Hello viewer, welcome to Health Talk. This is another new episode. We are talking about cancer in this month of October. I guess you know so well that this is an cancer awareness month, and today I am joined by someone you must be so interested to meet because it's going to be taking us through a topic that you must also be very interested in. My name is Betty. I hope you join us and allow my guest to introduce himself, tell us his name and also his title.
Thank you, Betty. My name is Daniel Ojuka. I am a doctor, a medical doctor. I work at Kenyatta National Hospital, but I also teach at University of Nairobi, Department of Surgery, at the Kenyatta National Hospital campus.
Wow, such a senior person. When you hear about surgery, you hear those people who cut others. So today we would like to talk about breast cancer. This is the Cancer Awareness Month, and I'm glad that you're here joining us to tell us the many things that we do not know. So my very first would be, what is that? You know, when you hear about cancer, you want to take off because it sounds like a death sentence. I don't know what that is to you.
Cancer is not a death sentence.
Okay.
Cancer is just a description of how cells grow. Cells in our body usually grow and die off. So for example, I'm sure there are people who shave like me every week. Mm-hmm. So that means that you shave today and then your hair will always be growing in a way. Mm-hmm. And then the way God made us is that the cells grow at a point. Sometimes they are quiet, they are not growing, and then sometimes they die off. Mm-hmm. So that process. However, when it comes to cancer, what happens is that there is what controls growth at the very root is something called DNA. Mm-hmm. So that DNA has features of regulating when cells grow, when they are quiet, they are not growing, and when they die off in that process of growth. Mm-hmm. So sometimes there are things, because of the environment in which the cells are, they either one thing or another leads to a break in the DNA. Mm-hmm. And so usually the normal thing is that there are repair. And sometimes that repair doesn't go well. Because either the break is at the gene that repair is concerned with the repair. And because of that, these particular cells have unregulated growth. They grow without stopping to grow, and they grow and they get characteristics of, you know, as you grow, you need food. Mm-hmm. And cells grow, but mm-hmm. they have this character of the ability to make blood vessels by themselves. Mm-hmm. And so those blood vessels will be able to get food from where the blood supply usually is. Mm-hmm. And they have the ability that even when they break off in and then they go into blood vessel, they're able to attach themselves elsewhere and continue growing. So mm-hmm. that is, you can say cancer is a cell that has gone rogue. Whereas the body has the ability of mopping those cells up. Mm-hmm. These cells also have the ability to escape that mopping. Mm-hmm. So there are cells that have kind of gone rogue. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. in a layman language, so to say.
They cannot be controlled or confined.
They cannot be controlled, they cannot be confined. Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right.
So that is what cancer is. They want to like just grow and take over the whole place.
And I wonder what would cause that, because if you say it's a breakout at the DNA level, and now that opens a way for cells to just grow uncontrollably, and they also develop their own blood vessels, and like they begin to live their own life inside your body.
Yes.
So if that is what happens, then what causes that, and how can I escape being a victim
of that kind of thing?
Yes.
So the cause are multiple.
Okay.
There are a number of causes. So mainly you can divide it into two things. Either you have inherited from the family, because there are genes. There are families that are born with genes that have a defect already. So they just need a slight thing and it comes up. And then the majority of the cancer is not from the family line. Majority of cancers are what you call sporadic. And the sporadic one are also caused by a number of things. And it could be, for example, the sun. There are people whose skin are weak, so if you light the sun, there are rays of the sun that does things with their DNA, like our brothers from Caucasian line.
Yeah.
So you will see them having a lot of skin growths. Generally, there's the people who have low melanin, they easily get those ones because the ultraviolet rays from the sun easily penetrate and does something to them. Then there are those people, their lifestyle issues, alcohol, smoking. If you particularly live in an environment where they kind of make things stay for long, like sour things.
Sour things as in fermenting or something?
Fermented food have particular they produce a certain
bacteria.
Not bacteria, chemical that can then play around with your DNA and break it. So there are a number of things.
I thought like having or eating fermented food has certain useful or good bacteria.
I don't know why you call them bacteria, but let's just call them nutrients. So they have usefulness. This is why you need a moderation, so that you don't eat too much of a thing. Because anything, I mean, even good things, if you take a lot of them, they become not so good. So there will be, if for example, there are areas, places in this world that they like really fermented foods. They will have certain type of diseases they develop out of that kind of thing. So there are things that we get from the environment, either from the food we eat, and from the way we live, from things, the chemicals we expose ourselves to, like the chemicals from the farms, sometimes the chemicals that are used to preserve food. Like when you eat a lot of processed food, the chemicals used in that process, therefore now when they go into your body, can cause the break or inability to repair the breaks in the DNA, and therefore begin that process. So
you have basically classified them into the sporadic and the hereditary.
Yes.
So if you are unlucky to be in the place where you're affected genetically, then that is so sad. But this other one, then I know that there's control.
None of them, none of them can you say you have complete control or incomplete control.
Okay.
Because one of the ways that we're going to talk about is there are what you call risk factors. There are things that if you have, you are at a more risk than the others.
Yes.
So there are others that are called modifiable risk factors and others not modifiable.
Okay.
So what I guess you're saying you have control of are modifiable risk factors. So non-modifiable things that you cannot do anything about include the fact that, for example, majority of breast cancers come from being a lady, so that you can't do anything about.
Yes.
And then, of course, sometimes comes from the genes that you have inherited, so that probably you can't do anything about.
Right.
And then, of course, it can also just come because of age. There is nothing really, you are not going to stop growing today. So those are things that you can say you can't really change, so they are non-modifiable. The modifiable would be things like if you're a lady and you're taking estrogen-based contraceptives, they have a way of increasing your risk. So if you have the less children you have, the higher risk, the more at risk you are. The earlier you start, if you start seeing your periods earlier than 11 years, or 11 years and below, you are at more risk. If you see your periods until 55 and beyond, that is also puts you at risk. If you get your child later than 30 years, the first child, that also puts you at
another risk.
But all those things are generally just saying, if you are, because what they do, all those things I have said about birth, whatever, what they do is they increase your exposure to estrogen hormone. So estrogen hormone, because it causes growth in breast tissue, it increases risk of having breast cancer. And then, of course, if and you can do something about those things. Those are modifiable factors.
Yes.
You can do something. You
that's
can
good
say,
news.
I am not taking
any
hormone.
Yes, any birth controls.
Yeah. Of course, there are birth controls without estrogen, so those are not putting you at risk at all. Not all birth controls put you at risk. And then, of course, issues of radiation. If you are radiated either because of skin illness before, that puts you at risk. Or if you have been radiated for having breast cancer itself, of course, that also puts you at risk. And yeah, so there are those things you can say, this I can control. The issues of alcohol, the issues of smoking, those also puts you at risk.
Yes, but at least those ones are a little bit controllable.
Yeah.
Alcohol, smoking, radiation you may not control unless you're talking about, people also say if you have to warm your food in the microwave,
Not
if you
such
have
radiation.
to use
Not
plastic, not such.
radiation.
Exposure yourself like MRI,
We
things
are,
like that.
MRI has no radiation.
Okay.
We are talking about X-ray kind of thing, but also not just normal X-ray, because there are certain doses you need for you to say now I have exposure to radiation.
Okay.
Yes. So it's not just
Anything.
anything. Ultrasound doesn't have, MRI doesn't have. X-ray has, but has low radiation. So unless you take hundreds of them,
The frequency.
Yes,
Okay.
matters. So
Okay.
if you take one today and probably take one 3 months, I don't think there is any issue.
Okay.
Because the body deals with these issues in a very efficient manner. But those are, so essentially you are saying there are risk factors you can control, there are risk factors you may not control.
Yes.
However, why I was saying that none of them is necessarily inside your control completely, and none of them is outside your control completely, because there is what is called primary prevention and secondary prevention.
Okay.
So primary prevention, for example, is avoiding, is what you will do with modifiable factors. So you will, if you can avoid it in the first place, like not taking estrogen-based contraceptives. Those are things that probably you can now say you are doing primary prevention. Now, secondary prevention is what, and of course, is dealing with early detection and screening. What is recommended for our part of the world, because what we have realized as people who deal with the cancers, our part of the world, we get these cancers probably 10 years earlier than what the West does. So if, for example, breast cancers, the West get it around averagely in their 50s. Ours will be averagely in our 40s. And so if the West starts screening at 50, we should start screening at 40. So a lady who is 40 years and above should be able to go for their mammogram. And the government, the Jubilee government, had put what they are calling MAES, which is Medical Equipment Scheme, and with that they brought a number of mammograms. I think in every county hospital has a mammogram. So every person should be able to go to a county hospital and ask for a mammogram.
But it's not for free.
Of course,
yes.
It is not for free, but it is cheap.
Okay.
It is affordable. Maybe you cannot say cheap in this economy that we have.
Yes.
Really, nothing is cheap, but it is affordable. And if you compare that with what you will need to do when you have the cancer, then you can only say
it is cheap.
It is cheap. Or affordable. Let's just use the term affordable. I think is better. And so you, at 40, you should be able to go for your mammogram. But we also realize that our cancer come early. We've seen 20 years old with breast cancer. What we have put in, what the government has put in the guidelines, if you read the national screening guidelines, they have put that at the age of 35, you should be able to go for an ultrasound after every 3 years. At 40, you should go for that mammogram after every year, annual mammogram. And at 35, you should be able to go for two things. One is the ultrasound, because the breasts are very dense, so you can only detect any problem with the ultrasound after every 3 years. And also the second thing would be you go to a clinician, whether a nurse, a clinical officer, a medical officer, or a breast specialist, who should be able to do clinical breast examination and tell you that everything is okay, and then additionally do the ultrasound.
Wow.
And additionally, at that age, you should also be able to do breast self-examination.
Okay. Self.
Yes.
We need to take a short break, Dr. Daniel, and when we come back, you have already spoken about the risk factors, and it's very interesting how life happens so fast, so fast, that all these things have caught up with us and they were never there before. And now we have a choice to control or not to, especially when I heard you talk about the primary and the secondary. I'm very interested, especially being a woman, because you said one of the risk factors that are non-modifiable is the fact that you were born female. I know that breast cancer also has caught men, and we may not talk much about that, but let's take a short break, and when we come back, then let's talk about who can catch this disease, and when they do, when it's detected early, if you choose to go for the mammograms and the ultrasounds, how then can you handle? Viewer, we are taking a short break. I am joined by Dr. Daniel Ojuka, very, very knowledgeable and sharing lots of information on what you need to know, especially for your health. Coming back shortly. Okay, welcome back, viewer. I am still here with Dr. Daniel Ojuka, giving us lots and lots of information and knowledge on this subject, cancer. So he began by saying that cancer is not a death sentence. So if you have any kinds of symptoms or anything that you may suspect, I would like you to take rest, because one, it is not a death sentence. Two, there are categories. If you were listening well and you've been to a biology class, you probably know, and you must have had things that are familiar, especially, you know, the hormones and modifiable and the non-modifiable things that you can do. And there was a very clear classification and distinction on things that you can do and things that you cannot do. My greatest concern, Dr. Daniel, is the things you cannot do. Especially being a woman, there's nothing you can do about it. But now, who is at risk in getting this disease? I have met people who say they eat really well, and they have been doing their very best to ensure that they are not putting any processed foods in their mouth. They are doing what Dr. Daniel says they should do. But we have taken them underground because of cancer. They have tried doing everything that they do. I heard you in one of your statements talk about a girl at 20s, and I'm just wondering, isn't that too early? Is it that, I mean, it's not anyone's fault to have their menses earlier, to be born in such a family, to stay up to 55, you're still having your menses. Those are things you can actually not control at all. So who is at risk, and what can we then do? How do we now live? Because nobody wants to be a victim, unfortunately.
Good question. So my answer to that would be one, that we need to then relook at what we are saying at risk.
Okay.
When I am saying these people are at risk, I am not saying that every female will get cancer.
True that.
I am not saying that every female that is born in a family with breast cancers will get cancer.
Correct.
And I am not saying that every female that uses contraceptive will get cancer.
Okay.
And it does not also mean that if you don't use, that you won't get.
Oh my God, so disappointing.
Because as I have told you, the core, the root is in the DNA. And what happens at that level, we may not tell, right? What will break the critical part of DNA that then will lead to the multiplication. It is something that we will not see and we will not tell.
And we cannot control by eating well.
And we cannot control it by eating well.
Exercising.
Eating well does prevent a lot of other things. Exercising does prevent a lot of other things. I think what I am saying is that it does not control everything. Okay. Essentially, I am saying that human beings have very little control or lack of it.
True.
That's why I was saying, whether modifiable or non-modifiable, we have very little control.
You know why I like that statement? Because you have said that even if, as a woman, you choose to stop your contraceptives or birth controls today, it is not a check-in that you will never
get cancer.
Yes.
No, it is not.
And also, if you choose to change your lifestyle and have a totally different meal plan from what you have had, it also does not stop to predispose you. So you are still at risk anyhow, and there is nothing you will do to get to the very bottom of your DNAs to instruct that there should never be an eruption.
That's true. So that is why I was saying the most important thing, therefore, for you and me is to have what is called secondary prevention.
Yes.
Where we are doing screening so that we detect these things when they occur early enough in our lives and in the life of the people that we love.
I guess that is the only prevention, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I guess that is the only prevention, just being proactive.
Yes.
Like, you have turned 35,
yes.
You are at 8.
Yeah.
An ultrasound every 3 years.
Yeah.
And when you get to 40, you're doing a mammogram yearly.
Yes.
And the mammogram does not have the radiation exposure, does it?
It has radiation because everything that has rays have radiation. But I think among all the X-rays, mammogram has the least. You can get tons of them with essentially no problem. Yes.
Dr. Daniel, my other great concern with this disease is that much as we have no control, and I like the way you have made it so clear, so that no one is feeling condemned and no one is judging the other, that you have just been eating and eating fast food, so what did you expect? Or you have been boasting to take care of yourself so well, how again did you get up here? What then shall we do other than, the secondary prevention to help us escape? And how shall we then now live? There is that freedom that people say, oh, I eat this or I don't eat that, I can still get, and people just live carelessly. I hope that is not where we are right now. But my greatest concern for you as doctors, you who have been doing research on this ever since this disease came, and we all knew it was a death sentence because there was no cure. No one was telling us how it came. Some people called it a curse, and people tagged it with many names. Have your researchers given and brought hope, given any success, such that we are not where we were 10 years back or 20 years back, or since the inception of this disease?
Good question. I think I want to say that we can intervene as human beings at 2 levels.
Okay.
Level number 1 is deal with the modifiable risk factors, so that I should be able to eat well, take care of what I eat so that I don't eat poison. I don't eat too much of one thing or another. And do my exercise, reduce the smoking and the alcohol, and do everything in my power to reduce the risk. Having done that, the second thing that you need to do is to ensure that you have health checks regularly. If you're a lady, begin knowing how your breast feels. So you do breast self-examination so that I know whether during periods or not periods, this is how my breast feels. If I feel differently, I should go see a doctor. And even if I have done the mammogram, because 1 year is long enough for things to develop. So you need to, on top of the annual mammograms, you also need to at least understand how your breast feels. So when we do those two things, taking care of my health, but also taking care of my health in such a way that I go for health check, I think those would help in early detection. Because if we detect it early, it can be exterminated by the doctors. From, like you said, from the time that breast cancer or any cancer was found, I think one of the cancers that have really been studied is breast. Because right now we know that there are mainly main types of breast cancers. It's not a single disease. Mainly 4, but there are more than 4. If you look at the DNA arrays of the cancer, there are more than 4. There are multiple.
But mainly?
But mainly 4.
Okay.
What we are in a season of what is called precision medicine. So that not every lady who comes to see me with breast cancer is treated the same. We need to find out what is your type so that we contextualize your treatment to your type of cancer. And the research continues to go on, because even when you give medication, like malaria, you hear there are malaria resistance. Even in cancer treatment, there are drug resistance. So even those ones, you will find out what is the issue. Why are you resistant? Are you resistant to this? Then if this lady is resistant to this, would be the type of drug that is best for them. So those are researches that are going on. Even when you, for example, one of those types of is where you find no expression of hormone or growth factors at all. It's called triple negative. But even those ones, there are many other researches that have been done around it that now makes them very treatable, that people survive for a long time and take care of their family for a long time.
I have heard and read in several places that cancerous tumors are hardly painful. Sometimes people wait to feel something, especially those who do not know how to do the self-breast examination. They may wait to feel something. And as Africans, culturally, we are not the ones who go for regular medical checkups, because you require us to have an insurance, and I don't have that. I don't want to pay for something that is not paining me or ailing me. So I don't just take myself to the hospital. Oh, I came to have a diagnosis on my entire body. Please check me, and here is a check. I mean, who does that? It is not an African culture. But then I guess where we are heading, if this is going to be the better solution, then I guess we may have to divert and go that direction. But then, Dr. I'm thinking, how long can then somebody have cancer in their bodies and before it is detected? Because if it is painless, I don't know if that is true, if things have changed, that you will see something swollen, that, you know, it will chase you. You will see that your melanin has gone down, so you suspect this is skin cancer. You don't feel any pain. You don't see any growth. You don't see anything abnormal. How
Yeah.
long can it survive in your body before you actually detect?
Detect it. Good question. So the answer to that would be in two phases. So number one, I wanted to say that majority of cancers, breast cancer in particular, will not present with pain. 95% of the time.
Wow.
Right.
So unfortunate.
So
I guess they should be so painful so that you run.
unfortunately for cancers, because it's just like normal growth, they will not be painful. So 95% of them will not present with pain. So that is one. Number two, to your answer, is that there is what is called doubling time, because it is about growth. So the reason why I was telling you there are various types of cancers, because they have different doubling time. They are doubling time, meaning if it was one cell, how long does it take to be two? How long does it take to be now 4, to be 8, to be 16, to be 32, to be 64?
Yeah.
Because cancers can only be detected maybe if they are even by the PET scan, unless they are more than 5 millimeters, you may not detect them.
Oh.
So number one, that will depend on what you are using. If you want to use physical, it may take long. Number two, it depends on the cancer, the type of cancer. If you're dealing with the poorly differentiated, meaning cancers that really divide very fast, it will be shorter. If you're dealing with cancers that divide slowly, there are type of cancers that, quote unquote, give you time. So they will divide slowly. So their doubling time is even longer years, could be months. There are others that their doubling times would be in months, but others would be in many months or a year. Yeah. What I note in our part of the world, from the researchers we do, people really delay before coming to hospital, and there are many myths and misconceptions that are out there about cancer. Sometimes is people really, human beings, you probably cannot blame them, because some people would think that I don't want to know what
It's ailing me.
whether I have cancer or not. I really don't want to know. I know there's some mass there, but I really don't want to know what it is. So maybe it is your children's who, because when cancer grows and it becomes ulcerated kidonda, that is when it becomes painful. Now you want to start telling the people around you, so maybe your children will now tell you, please go. But some people really don't want to know, right? And there are people who would say that, because I did a research in Kenyatta, and averagely, people take 37 weeks before they present to some will go in a day, some may...
After they hear the news?
Yeah, okay. I mean, after feeling anything.
Oh, okay.
Some will go after many days.
I know.
So that is a big problem. Of course, some will not go because they don't have money. Some will not go because of good reasons. But sometimes, of course, it is those misconceptions that if you go to hospital, this or this will happen to you. If you go to hospital and it is cut, it will grow very fast. Those are the misconceptions that you hear out there.
We want to leave the treatment to the experts, to you guys.
Yeah.
And that is none of what we can do once we have been found victims. And so we will not even get into that because
But
we
I
are
think
out
what
of time.
I was saying is the sooner you go to the hospital,
This better.
the better. Because the earlier it is found, the cheaper the treatment will be.
And
Because
there's hope.
it may be just surgery without chemo, without radiation. Because
Okay.
the earlier you get it, the less you do.
Oh, so you can actually have surgery without ever having chemo?
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
If
You
you-
talked about something that I found really interesting, but
Yeah.
now we are completely out of time. When you talked about the cells that degenerate, or rather cells that multiply slowly, like they're 1 today, then they're 2, then they get to 4, then 8 and 16. Is that what forms the stages? And when they get to how many, do you now start feeling like I need to go? At 2, do you feel something? At 4, do you feel 8?
I think for you, you know, a cell is not even a centimeter.
You said up till 5 mm.
Yeah.
That's
By the
when they can
time
be
they form
detected.
5 mm, probably there are thousands of cells.
Oh, really? They are more than 64?
Very big.
Ah, okay. So
Yes.
people should go early.
Yeah.
Wow, Daktari, you have been very informative, very informative. Anyone who was listening and was familiar with this subject has gained a lot for sure. We can bet on that. You have made it so distinct, so simple, so clear that whoever follows up again will not find it difficult to take the next step as advised. And so, viewer, as you heard, we need to go for checkup without wasting time. Let's not waste that day. We feel something, whatever it is, even without feeling, we already have a prescription. Go every year once you are 40. Dr. Daniel, please give us your parting shots.
My parting shot is a diagnosis of cancer is not a life sentence. The earlier you get it, the more likely that you will live longer, the cheaper the treatment will be. And there are treatments right here in Kenya. You don't have to go outside. We have the best diagnostic tools. We have breasts. For breast, I know, myself, I'm a breast surgeon, so I know there are the best experts of cancer in this country. And so it is possible. What we need to do is come out as Kenyans and go to healthcare providers and present ourselves as early as we can, so that we get the help that we need as Kenyans with the experts that we have. I thank you.
Wow, wow. That is excellent. You have renewed our hope and given us such excellent information. I hope that we can actually hit to that, because we have always booked our flights to India anytime we got the diagnosis. But with that assurance, I hope that we can try, especially that you have given the disclaimer that you yourself is a breast surgeon, so at least they can trust. They have heard you, they have seen you. They'll come to Kenyatta saying, I want that guy who was in GBS and was talking about breast cancer. I will personally come for the screening. I hope you can give me that date. So viewer, this has been such a lovely time. I hope you have gained a lot of knowledge and a lot of information. And most importantly, for everything you have had, please practice. Knowledge that is received and just kept is not helpful. My name is Betty Akuku. I've been your host. See you next time.